その現在問題になっている環境問題、地球の温暖化も関
The
係している。
environmental issues currently at hand, including global warming, are related, but I believe that at their root lies the decline in our listening ability, the power of listening, as humanity. This decline is not merely a matter of our listening ability weakening as we age, but rather encompasses what we choose to listen to, how we perceive it, and all the various subjects of listening and methods of comprehension. I believe this decline is a collective issue for humanity, particularly in modern Western contexts, where we have been taught that this is how to listen, especially in relation to music and everyday listening practices, and how we have become confined to these methods. We must have once believed in more locally rooted ways of listening, but we are losing that. I think that is fundamentally connected to the current environmental issues.
Episode 236. My conversation with Japanese musicologist and soundscape researcher Keiko Torigoe at her home in Tokyo on May 21st, 2025. Keiko is retired from her position as professor at the Ayoma Gakuen University in Tokyo and is currently president of the Soundscape Association of Japan. Now, Keiko is a longtime friend and colleague in the international acoustic ecology community, and she's done some very important research on soundscape culture in both Canada and in her native Japan. I was very fortunate that Keiko kindly answered 2 questions in Japanese. My first question was about the theme of this season. What is the role of arts and culture in times of crisis, collapse, and renewal? I then asked Keiko what she is passionate about these days and what she thinks artists, cultural workers, and listeners should do in order to better connect with human and more than human communities. You'll hear my wife, artist Sabrina Matthews, narrate the English translation. You can also listen to Keiko's original answers in Japanese from a link in the episode notes. The power of listening. This is a special episode of Conscient Podcast because I'm with my good friend Keiko Torigoe in Tokyo, Japan. And exceptionally, Keiko, who speaks very good English, will answer my questions in Japanese because she's obviously more fluent, and I will transcribe that. So Keiko, thank you for coming on the program.
At least, thank you very much for coming to my place. Okay, I'm ready to start.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you for having me. So I start with the question, what do you think the role of arts and culture is in times of crisis, collapse, and renewal?
その現在問題になっている環境問題、地球の温暖化も関係してるんですけれど、その根源にはね、私はやっぱり私たち人類の聞く力、そのリスニングの力の衰えがあると思うんですね。で、その衰えっていうのは
The environmental issues currently at hand, including global warming, are related, but I believe that at their root lies the decline in our listening ability, the power of listening, as humanity. This decline is not merely a matter of our listening ability weakening as we age, but rather encompasses what we choose to listen to, how we perceive it, and all the various subjects of listening and methods of comprehension. I believe this decline is a collective issue for humanity, particularly in modern Western contexts, where we have been taught that this is how to listen, especially in relation to music and everyday listening practices, and how we have become confined to these methods. We must have once believed in more locally rooted ways of listening, but we are losing that. I think that is fundamentally connected to the current environmental issues. Although I cannot say for certain, I believe that even R. Murray Schafer, whose awareness I cannot gauge, was proposing the concept of soundscape in connection with such matters. I mentioned earlier that there is a general decline in the deep meaning of listening, but there is also music. I think the very concept of music has become exceedingly narrow. As noted in R. Murray Schafer's The Tuning of the World, music originally had two aspects. One is the power of music for communication between humans, which I believe continues strongly today and is very important. However, we have forgotten the other aspect of music, which is the concept of music that connects not just humans, but also the more than human world, allowing us to communicate with the entire natural realm. We have forgotten this broader meaning of music, which in Japanese is referred to as kogi, meaning a wider interpretation. When we think of music, we think solely of communication between humans, which may be the strong point of music, whether verbal or nonverbal. Yet prior to that, there is the issue of music and art as a means of communication with the more than human world, which has been largely forgotten or has become impoverished over time. I believe that the concept of soundscape is proposed against this fundamental background. Japanese people have historically engaged in various musical activities, but now when we think of music, we refer to the concept of Western modern music imported during the early Meiji period, equating it with art and music. In doing so, we have lost the connection to how we engage with that world, including appreciating nature aesthetically and employing various nuanced ways of listening, which I believe we have long forgotten. It is a global issue, but I feel that it is also a problem for us Japanese on a daily basis.
それは世界の問題でもあるけれど、日本人としてもその辺が問題だなというふうに日々感じています。はい。
I didn't understand much of that, though the words like soundscape and Murray Schafer. We're here in your house in Tokyo, and we're surrounded by your research and your books, and I'm very impressed by reading and hearing some of the things you're interested in. You probably just explained what I'm going to ask you, but I'm interested in what you talked to me about the other day around listening and more than human relations. But what's next for you? What are you passionate about right now? And what do you think artists and cultural workers and listeners should be doing more of to connect with both human and more than human communities?
それは私は今まで日本のいろんなところに行って、日本といってもその場所によっていろいろな聞き方があったり、社会も含めた環境全体の交わり方があるんですけどね、結局じゃあ私は
I have traveled to various places in Japan, and although Japan is one entity, the way of hearing things varies depending on the location, and there are different ways of interacting with the overall environment, including society. Ultimately, when I think about what I want to know most deeply, it comes down to the place where I live. By chance, I returned to the place where I was born and raised, and in the year 2000, I decided to build my home there. I think I made that decision in the years before I became 45 years old. At that point, I wanted to deepen my communication with the land, not just by living there and going through the motions of sleeping and waking, but as a kind of artistic activity. Or what was it like before I was born? To carry out such activities, I have been working on a specific project called the Pondside Walk Concert since 2010. This involves promenade concerts around lakes and ponds, and since it is the place where I was born, I have walked, ran, and played there since I was little. I want to create a program that conveys what I am thinking to the people who are there. In simple terms, while walking around the pond, I talk about various things, like what I did when I was small, or what I find mysterious recently. I turn my explanations into poetry and sing them myself, and sometimes my friend Kosuke Tsuche, who is also involved, recites and sings them too. There are also drummers and other musicians, like a person who plays a Korean drum called a chango while walking, and saxophonists, and various people come along depending on the time. While collaborating with them, we share our experiences with the people who come and those who are there, which leads to further questions and desires to know more or to confirm things. Over the year, we conduct various surveys and talk to local residents who have lived there for a long time, adding to our knowledge and gradually changing our methods. We have been doing this for almost 15 years now. After all, by taking action from our side and working with others, My relationship with that place has changed remarkably, and my feelings towards the pond in my hometown and its surroundings have also changed. Art and such activities transform me, and having done it for many years, it gradually affects those around me as well. For example, my mother, who is 93 years old, is hardly interested in what I am doing. She has never read any papers and probably hasn't read any books either. However, she comes to that walk or event, walks together with us, and participates in the activities. She does this together with the neighbors. My mother finally said she understood what the practice was about, and she also shared stories from her youth. Engaging in such activities over the years with those close to us is a way to continue and deepen our interactions with more than human entities. Unexpectedly, spirits and deities from the past emerge, which is truly surprising. I find that various feelings are born within me, and I realize there are so many unknown aspects of my hometown. It is important not just to objectively investigate what these people are like by going to some field, but I believe it is very meaningful to engage in such activities in the context of my own life and where I live.
だけど、でももう自分の延長線、自分の住んでいるところでそういったことをやっていくことっていうのが非常に意味があると思います。
Well, we're almost, that's wonderful. We're almost out of time because it's about 15 minutes. I want to thank you for speaking about your work, at least in a initial way.
Yes.
And I'm seeing connections between Canada and Japan in terms of listening practices, traditional, contemporary, and I think we should continue dialogue and exchange.
Yes.
You came to Canada so many years ago and made a really important contribution in Canada through your research and in Japan, of course. So I look forward to future collaborations.
Thank you very much. Me too. Let's do so.